I'm Sarah Nagel. I've spent my career leading research and product development within some of the world's largest brands.
And I'm Chad Reynolds. I'm a serial entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Verve.
And this is AI Powered by People.
Each episode will dive into the latest developments in AI and talk to an industry leader to help you better understand and utilize it.
We'll take you inside some of the world's most famous companies and share examples of how AI is improving innovation, consumer engagement, media, and marketing.
No matter what industry you work in, we're going to help you navigate one of the biggest disruptions to organizations and people today. Hey everybody, and welcome to our special episode at South by Southwest. I'm here joined by my co-host Sarah Nagel.
Hello.
In real life.
In real life. This is the first time we've done this in person.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So I've been to South by Southwest a few times.
This is my first time. This is my first time. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot going on with film and TV and tech and brands. And you know, there's a lot to see. There's a lot to do. A lot of panels going on. A lot of brands represented. A lot of tech represented. And so we have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Let's
and
see.
The common theme is AI. AI, I think last year was a part of South by Southwest, but the reason we're here is that it's actually being applied and completely disrupting all of these different industries all at the same time. So it's going to be pretty interesting to attend a lot of different sessions. We're going to be doing interviews with people.
Yeah, and it's awesome because we can talk to really anybody here about AI and how it's transforming their brand, how it's transforming how they're creating products and experiences, and even how it affects the film industry too.
So on this episode, we've got two amazing interviews. The first one, Sam Hornsby from Triptk. I know you have a relationship with Sam.
I do. I've worked with him in the past. He's great. He's a lovely human. CEO and founder of Triptk. They are a brand consultancy, futurists. They help transform brands. And he's here talking about that with some of the brands that he has worked with.
Right. And then the second one we've got coming up, we're going to kind of shift it a little bit into entertainment. And an AI company, it's disrupting, or just, I guess, changing how entertainment can happen.
Yeah, it's called, it's Ellie Jamen with WScripted. And WScripted enables the studios to be able to read through more scripts and give visibility to more writers.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a great conversation.
That's awesome. So we'll be broadcasting all day long from Lambert's as part of Brand Innovators. We got hundreds of people coming in through the space, so it should be an exciting one.
It's going to be great. All right, let's go to Sam.
Today we have Sam Hornsby from Triptk in New York, CEO and founder. But for our listeners, can you tell us a little bit about your company and what you do?
Yes, so Triptk is a global brand transformation firm, and we partner with brand leaders to create enduring brand values. So really we're everything to do with creating underlying brand value for brand leaders and organizations. And typically that looks like a couple of different things. It looks like building brand foundations. That's all of the kind of underpinning constructs that set up a brand for long-term growth, its mission, its vision, its values, its positioning, who it's targeting, which markets it's in, all of those kind of key strategic questions. And then brand futures, which is really helping brand leaders and organizations see around corners, predict the future, look at new opportunities, and build new product, services, and experiences to tap into that future growth. We're very proud of our partner roster. We get to partner with a huge range of clients across sectors, but they tend to be kind of category leaders and industry leaders across the verticals. So that's companies in Belvalk like Diageo, in footwear and apparel, it's companies like VF Corporation. In beauty, it's Estee Lauder. In financial services, it's Goldman Sachs and Bain Capital. Really, a fantastic roster of clients. I think for us, though, it's less about the size of the company and much more about, are we kind of aligned in terms of the ambition to really sort of grow and to lead and shape culture.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with you while I was at VF, and I remember you guys as just being able to find all the cool kids, and I've told you this before, so find the cool kids in New York. If we're going to be doing like a streetwear project around kind of the future of what that looks like, you guys are the go-to.
Yeah, well, I think my background is in strategic insights consulting. So before I founded Triptk, I spent a lot of my career really doing a lot of primary research to drive and fuel brand organizations. And I've long held the belief that a business is as good as its ability to identify and action insight. And that sounds kind of obvious, but actually it's remarkable in how many organizations actually insights and strategic insights aren't treated as a North Star kind of guiding capability. They're actually often treated as a kind of a validation capability, right? They're sort of the folks you go to when you just want some data to back up what you already think. And actually, the world is changing, categories changing very, very rapidly. And actually, that kind of insights capability really needs to be at the very forefront of the organization. It needs to be actioned at the very, very top of the enterprise. And so for us, all of our work, whether we're building a new product or a new brand strategy or a new experience, is always underpinned by that insight work. We call it decoding and recoding. So the decoding part is how do you really understand the emerging cultural signals and drivers, what's shaping people's attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs. And the recode part is how do you really pull those insights through to create winning brand strategies that create brand value. And I think to your point, Sarah, a lot of that means like talking to folks that are hard to reach, that don't necessarily show up for a focus group or don't want to do
new ways.
Yeah, you have to engage with them in new ways,
Yeah.
and these are not people who want to, to sort of fill out surveys. I remember when we were doing transformation work for Vans, for example, when you were at VF, a lot of that work was, getting our kind of roving team of reporters and analysts and researchers right out into skate parks in all of these cities all around the world, right? Listening to kind of Gen Z skaters to really understand how they felt about the pursuit of skate, how the brands were sort of showing up. And it meant really being on the ground and really finding, as you say, the kind of those cool kids, because they're going to tell you, what the future holds and where the market is moving better than anybody sort of sitting in a boardroom. So, we put a lot of emphasis on that, and I'd say like we pride ourselves on being able to find those kind of emerging perspectives, those leading edge consumers, often also those sort of experts who are really not just kind of commenting on culture, but are really contributing to and kind of shaping culture to really kind of fuel our work. But we also have a lot of cool kids working at Triptk too, I should say as well. Like we have an amazing bench of talent who are incredibly plugged in, who are incredibly curious, who come from all different walks of life, and who really kind of bring their passion and their lived experience in and outside of the office to bear on the work that we get to do.
That's awesome. So have you seen anything or like one of the talks or the panels that has inspired you so far? Any insights you can talk about?
Yes. I mean, there's at South by there's always way too much to see. I'm very happy that I'm here both with a strong delegation from Triptk who are covering a lot of the programming, but also from a fantastic team from my broader business partners from the groups at Havas, who are gathering all sorts of insights from across really interesting talks. I think the one that really stood out to me yesterday, probably apropos for this conversation, was the panel on AI at Brand Innovators. I thought it was a really, really rich and interesting discussion. I was thrilled to hear from our client, Brandon Larson, who's the head of strategy and brand strategy for the Microsoft commercial business, including kind of Copilot. Fascinating to really hear directly on that kind of panel how they're thinking about building and using generative AI for good and for business. So yeah, that really stood out to me.
You're like, I don't know if you want to use maybe the example with Dickies, but if you're going through a transformation like that, you're setting some guidelines for what the brand is and the story they want to tell, but also ways that can be personalized for each individual of what Dickies means to them. How are they wearing it? How are they using it in their life? Just curious, like how you see kind of that traditional, I won't say call it traditional, but just like the world of creating that transformation, but also just incorporating AI as a way to maybe personalize the experience a little bit more.
I mean, it's a huge topic. I think, a lot of our work, being insight sort of driven, is very much often anchored, and it was for Dickies, in establishing a really kind of clear and relevant target framework. So before we sort of turn to talking about individualized personalization and how we might use generative AI to customize at scale things like kind of messaging and content, I think one of the most sort of core and important areas of a lot of our work is actually being really clear on our different target priorities and different audience priorities and the frameworks that we're actually kind of using. It's amazing sometimes when you engage with even very sort of sophisticated brand organizations. If you ask the question, who are we for? you often get back quite a few different answers from across the enterprise, actually. And I think there continues to be a lot of confusion around some foundational principles in terms of what is the difference between a design target that might guide the brand at the sort of North Star level in terms of its overall kind of ethos and mindset versus kind of specific buyer targets or subsegments of that mindset. I think there continues to be confusion around how do you define your core annual key growth consumer, what are the sort of the inputs for that, how do we understand where the opportunity in the market is, and so we do a lot of work for that, and that was very much the case for Dickies, where this was a brand that was in transition. A lot of the brands that we are working on, brand transformation are, but it was exciting because it was a brand that was acquired by VF, really as a 100-year-old heritage workwear brand, but the opportunity through the acquisition was to really grow it as a work-inspired lifestyle brand. And that meant completely rethinking, the who, where, for piece. And that was kind of one of the first jobs to be done, was to really think about, okay, well, what is that growth audience in lifestyle? And how do we identify and serve that audience in a way that actually still maintains our unique DNA and heritage as a brand? Because we've been built for 100 years serving this workwear audience, like the folks who wear Dickies to the job site. But there are risks involved with going out and saying, hey, now we're about outfitting the guys who wears Dickies to South by Southwest because it's a cool brand, right? Streetwear brand. So a lot of the work there was really about sort of reconciling the kind of the heritage of the brand with the future of the brand through Target. And I think that's not getting into the AI piece just yet, but I think that's one of the things that we do well and we love to do is actually make sure that even through growth, you're still laddering up to what is the connective tissue, what is the mindset that this brand is speaking to, so that we're not fragmenting. And often it's the fragmentation that starts to kind of erode the brand equity and starts to erode the brand value. And I think that's where, when we talk about AI, there is a very real and interesting tension, right? Because yes, we suddenly have the ability to do mass customization, mass personalization, content at scale. We have the ability to speak to audiences almost in a kind of a one-on-one way. But in that environment, how do you actually maintain the soul of the brand? How do you continue to maintain the shared identity of the brand? Because a lot of what brand value is, and a lot of what makes brands strong, is not just it's the social value, it's the social capital, it's the fact that brands can act as touchstones and water coolers for audiences. It's something that they can bond socially around. And so I think one of the things, and there's many aspects of AI in the way that we are either incorporating it ourselves, the way that we are advising our clients on it, the way that it is reshaping industries, the way that it is reshaping culture. But I think we're particularly interested in what it means for core brand, right? What it means for those those core narratives. I think, and there's many aspects to that. I think the targeting piece and the sort of the brand narrative piece is one where I think we need to be thinking about, just because we can, should we? Right. In all instances when it comes to kind of leveraging AI, it's great to experiment, but let's make sure that we're still holding on to the core tenets of the brand, the core values of the brand, that we're telling stories and showing up for consumers in ways that can create that collective benefit, because the collective and social benefits of a brand are what give it its meaning and value. We run at Havas one of the largest global brand surveys in the world, the Meaningful Brand Survey. It's hundreds of thousands of consumers, hundreds of brands, hundreds of territories, and the data that comes back from that has been very clear, which is that, brands that outperform on individual, personal, community and societal benefits and values outperform their peers in the stock market by many multiples. But you can't walk away from those sort of collective and societal aspects of the brand. And as I say, I think that is a tension as we enter sort of step into bravely this era of kind of individualized personalization.
So if I separate the two worlds, so if you've got, as a agency owner, like we talked last night, I can think at great length of what that looks like. I'd love to explore the two parts of it. One is, how might AI change the deliverables? Because it used to be kind of like a guidelines deck and tactics and how you execute those, but is that changing what you're delivering? And I want to have some follow-ups on the, more the consumer experience side of like, what do you think are things that are in and out of bounds of what the brand could give to the consumer world to do something different with the brand?
So look, I mean, I think it's a really interesting question. I think in terms of what, for example, to hone in on like a very specific deliverable, like a set of kind of creative brand guidelines, I actually think in many instances, I don't think where we operate is dramatically changing right now based on AI, and I'll talk a little bit about why that's the case. When it comes to building a brand ecosystem and kind of a brand identity system, we're very much focused on creating a flexible and fluid system that can work across all channels and touch points and really sort of hold together and deliver the core brand ethos. And I think with AI, that still needs to be the input. And that set of kind of principles and system guidelines still absolutely needs to sort of be the input that then gets perhaps reinterpreted and perhaps sort of reused further down the process, much further down the process in terms of activation and go-to-market. But I think, to take a little bit of a step back, I think AI for us and for me really kind of has 4 aspects, right? And I find myself quite often kind of, frankly, like bopping around between all of these levels. I think we probably all do, because it is such a massive. Right.
All at once and then separately. So
Right, you can. But I think, and this maybe speaks to your first question about what have you found kind of interesting. I think taking a step back, what I found to be most encouraging, because I am an optimist in all of this, and there's a lot of naysaying and there's a lot of skepticism and there's a lot of concern. In our industry in particular, it's one that's incredibly prone to disruption in this space, but the thing that I'm really pleased about, and I think I'm starting to see it here at South by, is that the advent of generative AI, not only is it disrupting industries, not only is it creating overnight huge amounts of value, and in some cases being responsible for huge overnight value losses for some major companies. I think overall what I'm excited about is that it is triggering a conversation that was kind of perhaps overlooked, right? We are now talking in much more earnest than we ever were before about some of the big questions, like what is an original idea, right? What is the true value of human intelligence, right? And what is meaningful work? What is meaningful art, right? And I think on an even bigger scale, how do we positively collaborate and compete as companies and even as economies and kind of industries now, right? And I think these were all things that were sort of in the mix, but everything about Gen AI is bringing huge heightened focus, and I see that as an enormously positive thing. Like, I think it is great that it's out in the open and that we're having real conversations about, frankly, these like really significant, meaningful topics. So for me, that's like, that's what gets my heart beating, to be honest. Those are the conversations that I think that really matter. I'm really excited to be talking to kind of brand leaders and industry leaders about those sorts of topics. Alongside that, as I say, we're jumping between 3 or 4 sort of aspects of what Gen AI means. I think, as you say, for a company founder and leader, there's how are we using Gen AI as a company, which I can kind of speak to a little bit.
I'm really curious about that. Like, what kind of advice are you giving these companies that you're working with? Like, folks that want to get into AI and start to use some of the tools. What and you as a futurist as well. Like, so how do you have those conversations?
Yeah. So there's lots of different mechanisms at the moment. we're consulting and advising on what Gen AI means for core aspects of the overall marketing ecosystem. So I think obviously at the very sharp end of that, and the first sort of areas to be disruption is really around production and content production and creation at scale. So our within Havas, Pros on Pixels is our global production capability, and they are rapidly innovating and using AI to really drive efficiency and performance at scale across the entire content production ecosystem, which is a really exciting sort of innovation and breakthrough. I think there it's a lot about leveraging AI to do the graft and kind of freeing up more human time to do the craft. There's obviously also on the media side of our business, which is another sort of very sharp end of where AI is kind of being deployed within the marketing ecosystem. A lot that's being done on performance and measurement and programmatic. As I say, within Triptk, we are particularly interested in what this means for brand experience and kind of for core brand. So, as I say, okay, we can personalize every message, but what does that mean for the shared collective narrative of the brand? What does that mean for the brand voice? Another area that we're very focused on and helping clients sort of work through is their service strategies. So again, wonderful. We're able to sort of automate and use AI for a lot of efficiencies in core touch points of customer service. But again, just because we can, should we? Where through the touch points of our brand journey do we actually really need to prioritize the human touch? And where is that more important? I think another core area that we're helping and sort of talking to clients a lot about actually is also things like brand architecture, right? So, suddenly you're in an environment where digital product creation is going to soon be almost at no cost, right? You're going to have automated AI agents that can basically build digital products overnight. You've got people saying all of a sudden, hey, you don't need to teach your kids to code anymore, right? You've got the CEO of NVIDIA saying, those sorts of things. You've seen the layoffs in Silicon Valley, right? Digital product creation is happening rapidly,
and it works very. It's rapid,
and it's very effective. That also means, though, that sort of branded digital products are going to be proliferating and multiplying at an extraordinary rate. So what does that mean for your sort of house of brands and for your brand, like your brand architecture? I think in my mind it puts even more importance on your parent brand as the sort of the North Star guiding force, I think. But also there needs to be real thought into the story that we're telling with these new digital products. Like I think Brandon's conversation yesterday around the thought that went into the Copilot, for example, and the branding and story around Copilot is a really good example. Now that's a big product, but being really, sure about how we're framing up the use of this brand and this product, in this instance, very much as a kind of something that's not in the driver's seat, that is actually kind of a companion that's making humans smarter, that's not automating their jobs or replacing them, is really important. So I think brand architecture is another area where we're sort of talking a lot to clients about what this means. And then the last very, very important area, I'd say, which kind of, in my world, very much connects to core brand, is brand standards and sort of social responsibility. And, really in this sort of kind of, there's the tech arms race, but there's kind of an ethical arms race as well that's happening. And it was very interesting hearing from the BBC yesterday at Brand Innovators talking about their underpinning sort of strategic principles for how they're going to leverage AI within their organization and provide that transparency to customers and consumers, but also set clear guidelines internally for how we produce and create work. And so that's another area that in my mind is, it's very sort of core to brand, it's core to brand ethos, and we're helping clients to shape and define that perspective.
So can you talk to, just like around the consumer side, so because you work with a lot of brands, we're like pro-consumer. I'm just like, as you know. I know. Everybody wins. I know. Hey, somebody has to. Just like what the brand appetite is for bringing consumers into that experience a lot more. Because like Sarah talked about, you are bringing in the cool kids. We're kind of working on more of the democratization of like the insight, because the insight is the magic. That's where it all is. Sometimes that insight isn't necessarily shared across the brand, and so then people are making their own choice of what it is, and you kind of end up with just confusion in the execution. But just curious on the brand side, that appetite for consumer.
Well, I think it's my experience is that most senior brand leaders, if they're running a large brand organization, they are fundamentally consumer centric. I think you cannot be a high performing business unless you are not just consumer centric, but fanatical about your consumer and are engaged in creating empathy with that consumer, which goes beyond just sort of knowing what they say and having kind of stated response data up the wazoo, but actually really understanding how they feel. And I think the best companies and the best brand leaders have that in their core and their DNA, and they're big evangelists for that. I think a lot of the time they will run into quite often sort of structural or operational challenges around how to kind of create those conditions across a big company. But this, and we've done some very interesting work, I think, for example, with American Express, where we've created kind of big internal change programs and platforms around customer empathy to bring their entire organization much closer to the experience of, for example, their biggest customer, the small business owner, right? Now, they're the leaders in understanding the small business owner. They're the market leaders in serving that customer. But you can never have too much empathy for your customer. So we've been doing a lot of work for bringing that in. But I think maybe where you're going and where I'd take the question a little bit is one of the challenges that those leaders face and that we try to help them solve is a bit of the time gap and the time delay, right? The traditional research process, the traditional way of engaging consumers and bringing that voice into the organization is often quite time and labor intensive. And there are enormously exciting ways using the latest technology to actually speed up that process and get those insights into and under the skin of the business much faster to enable much faster, quicker decision making. And I think AI holds a huge amount of promise for being able to kind of turbocharge, frankly, some pretty inefficient parts of that research journey and that insights gathering process. But I'd say that where it seems to be going and where I'm excited to see it going is much less of a call response sort of capability and much more of an ongoing conversation capability. And I think that's really exciting for how quickly companies can innovate and how quickly they can move. And to your point, how quickly they can bring the consumer into their decision making on a daily, real-time basis.
So that seems to be the crux of it, of like that relationship, like just to use Dickies as an example of how do you evolve with them throughout their day, these moments, but still stay core to what the value is of the brand. It's just that might change a little bit over time.
Yeah, that's right, and I think it's important also to bear in mind, and this, so, one of the, I've been in sort of applying strategic insights to brand and business growth for 15 plus years. I think one of the things within this is that, yes, we have to be able to innovate and be more customer centric, both in terms of our culture internally, but also in terms of the tools and processes that we use to gather customer insights. But what the customer says directly is just the starting point. They are humans. but the client organization, the brand organization, is also made up of humans. And it's funny. And so you insert technology into that process and it can drive great efficiencies. But it also needs to be in the hands of people who have not just the intellectual intelligence, the logical intelligence, which AI is very good at, but also they have the emotional intelligence and the cultural intelligence to be able to take that data and take that customer insight and actually take it through the organization in such a way that it creates consensus, momentum, and drives impact. And I think I'm very optimistic actually about what that means for high-value service sectors like the ones the one that I operate in, because I think while there's a lot of nervousness around AI automation, sort of taking parts of the job, I think that higher order piece is probably more important than ever, actually. We're going to be suddenly, we're going to have more data than ever before, but actually creating consensus around that data, telling the story from that data, working that story across organizational silos, taking that data and using it as a launching off point, not just to tell an organization what is happening today, because that's all people can really kind of do, and that's all AI can really do, but what could that mean for the future, and helping them see beyond the present state, helping them challenge some of their traditional biases and assumptions. That is where the value of, I think, sort of partners like Triptk and my team, I think, can be really, really impactful, and I'm really excited for, again, it's been focusing, right? AI has brought focus to that question of what are we really good at? What are the parts that are less important, and what are the parts that are really important that only we can do? And I'm stoked because I think, it allows us to focus on more of the stuff that only we can do.
So how do you think AI can help us amplify our human interactions?
I'll talk a little bit to kind of how we're using AI internally, because I think actually it speaks to that a little bit. Internally at Triptk, and then I can maybe extrapolate from that to what it might mean for consumer-to-consumer interactions. But at Triptk and within our group, we're doing a lot of the things that other big companies are doing. So we have a Microsoft Copilot partnership. We have a strategic partnership with Adobe. We're using Firefly. We've put AI chatbots over our proprietary data, like Meaningful Brands, to allow sort of greater access to that. But I think the part of it that I'm really interested in the way that we're using it, is kind of using AI and designing for dialogue, right? So there was a great article recently in the Harvard Business Review that talked, and the title was great. The title was, "Your Business Isn't Ready for Gen AI." And I think that's true of a lot of companies, actually. And I think part of the reason for that is that AI is still in many areas sort of being treated as a replacement or of a task or an aspect of a job description or a role description. But actually, I think at its best, it's another voice in the room. It's not the voice in the room, right? It's you're designing for dialogue in the sense that now you actually have another intelligent, not perfect, but voice in the room. And I think what that can do is actually, to your point, Sarah, create overall better interactions, right? It can be a bit of a leveler, because suddenly we've got this other neutral voice in the room. It can answer questions or do things that are quite, lower order, like note-taking and fact-gathering and so on and so forth, to allow the conversation to more quickly get to a sort of a high-order strategic conversation. That, I think, creates more and better interactions with the people on the team. And so I think that kind of idea of, as companies, if we can integrate AI into the workflow, rather than replacing components of the workflow with it, we will all just have a better work experience, and we will all have better dialogue. And I think similarly on the consumer side too, and consumer-to-consumer interactions, when companies think about deploying AI in a way that gets the consumer more seamlessly through the lower order annoying stuff that they have to do, and more quickly to a real meaningful interaction with another human, that is going to create fantastic rewards. Like if you're staying in a hotel, there's lots of aspects of the buying, booking, pre-planning journey. If Gen AI can, which I believe it's proven in many areas it can reduce friction and create more seamlessness across all of those other touch points, for example, booking, check-in, and fact gathering, and all of that kind of stuff, get you quicker to that amazing general manager or that amazing concierge or that amazing service professional where you can have an elevated conversation. That I think is really, really exciting for me. And I think, I think both internally and externally actually, lots of opportunity to improve human connection.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with like the Sweet Green founder around how they're using robots in the kitchen, using touch screens, using tech. It was like, well, even the people that work here enjoy cooking. They want to cook. So, yes, we could take an order and yes, we could do all these different things, but I enjoy cooking. That's why I want to be here and work here. So it's across so many different levels of just enhancing and giving people more purpose in what you're doing and trying to remove some of the stuff that like takes you out of what you want to be doing. Because that's where a lot of the turnover and burnout was happening. It's the reason why you might leave something you love.
Totally, and I think that it comes right back to that sort of foundational question of what is meaningful work, right? And what are people looking to really do? And I think it's different for everyone, but I think deployed in the right way, AI can give more people more choice as to what they're actually doing. It's not to say that an AI robot might not one day be able to cook a fantastic, or certainly chop and shake a fantastic salad, right?
A part of the AI salon that we're going to be here see later, yeah.
But if there are humans on your team for whom that is the meaningful, valuable piece of work, and that's what they're there for, then let them do it. Right.
Our producer is giving us the wrap-up sign,
and
it
was so much I thought it was an awesome thing for rodeo. It means wrap up.
It's a wrap-up.
Where's my steed? Where's my trusty steed?
We bring them everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, listen. Thank you for the conversation. Let's keep chatting. I'm here for that. I love what you guys are doing. So thank you very much.
This is really fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great interview with Sam. What were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, it's especially hard, I think, when you're going through a brand transformation with a legacy brand that is trying to activate multiple communities. So, how do you tie into workwear and streetwear?
Yep.
Is always super interesting. But yeah, they do amazing work, and we can't wait to collaborate more with them. So.
Yeah, and it's going to be really cool too, coming out of this, to hear more about the panel that he's doing with Dickies, to hear about the stories coming out of that.
So next up, we have Ellie Jamen, who's the founder of WScripted. It's an AI startup that's reading scripts to help studios, I guess, pick the best one.
Yeah, and give visibility to writers that may have been overlooked.
Yeah.
So it's good. I'm really excited about this conversation with Ellie.
And I'm going to be doing the panel at the same exact time you're doing the interview. So
yep.
I'm sure you're not going to miss me.
I got this.
This is going to be the best one yet, I'm sure.
Yeah. So here's Ellie.
Hey, Ellie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm honored.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's my first day at South by, my first time at South by, my first time in Austin.
Yeah?
It's a lot of excitement.
That's amazing. And you just got off a plane. You rushed over here after dropping your stuff at the hotel.
Yes, correct.
Well, thank you for joining us. So you are the founder and owner of WScripted. So can you talk a little bit about what you do and what that company is?
Yes. So WScripted started as a talent platform back in 2020, and the ideas came from my experience as a professional in film distribution, sales, and production. I saw that there was really a challenge for producers, executives to find new talent, new content, so talent platform made sense. And when we launched the talent platform in 2020, we received a lot of script submissions, and we were like, oh my God, how are we ever going to be able to curate and recommend or enable producers to look through those? And so the necessity to develop an AI technology to accelerate the review of these projects became very important. And that's kind of how we evolved to becoming an AI company, startup that today pivoted to building an AI technology to help producers, executives review projects, scripts, books, read them faster, listen to them, have an analysis, and have insights of those projects. And then the idea is really to help those ones that have a really busy schedule, so then they have more time to discover new talents.
Okay. So can you talk about that process? Like, what does that look like? Is it summarizing the scripts? Does it do coverage?
Yes. In industry terms, coverage is what producers ask their assistant to do, and so our technology enables producers, executives to have a coverage generated in minutes instead of having an assistant write it, and it takes 3 hours to write. And so the way the technology works today, it's you upload your PDF, so a screenplay or a book PDF, and then it gives you log lines, short summary, long summary. And the long summary is factual because we don't have yet built in the analysis element of the coverage, because there are a lot of, this is something that we'd be building, but it's going to require a lot of research to make sure it's the least biased, the most objective as possible. So we've kept that development for later, and instead we're building additional tools that are helping the professionals read faster, like a draft comparison feature, like an audio tool that lets them listen to the script or the book with faster speed audio, like insights that give them just a general overview of the script or the book before reading them, and kind of getting to know if it's a project that's worth reading and things like that. So we're following the steps of what a coverage has, but building technology around it.
Would you say that your tool benefits the kind of the studios more or the writers more?
So it's definitely geared towards decision makers, studio executives, producers, agents, literary agents, or talent agents that want to have a quick read. Also script consultants, people that are actually hired or whose day-to-day job is to read scripts. That can even be acquisitions people at companies, even distribution companies. Writers, what's interesting for them is that once we have those decision makers using the platform, then we'd be building in discovery features for them. But the tool is not meant for writers, but it's technology, so you keep trying. And then if writers want to use the technology because it's a great review tool, why not? But right now our focus is really the decision makers.
Yeah. So what kind of feedback are you getting? Just kind of like from the writers, because there's the WGA strike and there's a huge pushback to AI. So curious, kind of like, how are they receiving the tool?
So funny enough, we did an official announcement because we have a talent platform that existed since 2020. Very big community of engaged women and non-binary writers, and we're known for a list of top screenplays by women that has a jury, and this year we're proud to have Vanessa Kirby as part of the jury of this list. So it's like an initiative that we have. We sent to our writers an announcement that we have this technology, and its purpose is to help decision makers discover them faster, but also maybe eventually help them as writers use a tool that decision makers are using to review projects, so that they kind of get a sense of how a project is being reviewed. And interestingly, I think, we're a startup, so we're testing. The response was that a lot of writers didn't want to pay for the technology, because as a writer, it's already so hard to get your project to get seen and get optioned and get financed, that using a technology that is not yet, recommending it to the right decision maker, we don't have the discovery tools features right now. So for them, it's really the discovery piece that is interesting. That being said, a lot of them said, wow, it's so needed, and AI is a great way to really, get around the issue that no one had the time to read our project, or there are still entry barriers. And to answer to your question regarding the strikes, we were in conversation with writers during the strike. We talked to, some WGA members, we talked with writers, and the way we develop the technology is really meant to protect copyrighted materials and writers. and in a way set an example for how AI should be used as a positive tool. And I emphasize on the term tool and not a creator who will replace writers. The idea is really for decision makers to have a tool to help them read faster, and then for writers to be gaining more visibility.
Yeah, I think you bring up something really interesting too, because I'd be curious from your perspective, like how do you see AI? I'm sure a lot of folks in Hollywood are seeing this way that it's going to take their job. What is your perspective on that?
It's fascinating. I think I understand the threats that people talk about. I understand the fear around AI. I think this fear has decreased since the end of the strike. We've met members of IATSE 700 who are the script readers, the story analysts, and they want to grow with the technology instead of feeling like it's going to replace them. I think it's been our job, and it's been something interesting that we've been talking about, is how AI obviously right now is not good enough to replace a worker, a writer. It will eventually become good, who knows? And we don't have a grasp on that. The idea is really to work like as an industry. It's an industry with creatives. You don't want robots to think about the new story, because human experience is unique. Voices there are so many stories that are yet to be told, that are untold. I think 90% of stories from people in general are not told. The AI models have been trained on stories that we already know. So we shouldn't be afraid. Instead, rather using technology like a tool, like we're doing, to expand opportunities for those unheard voices. This is our mission. Then there's so many other applications like managing budgets, and so instead of being over budget, you can hire the right team and not be over budget, and so everyone is getting paid properly. Scheduling, so that you don't lose time, on days because you didn't, plan ahead of time. There's this is more for the optimization as a tool. Then I've met VFX artists that are very, very excited about the potential of AI. Also, it's going to be a creative tool for them to explore at really small costs. And producers, independent producers who are suffering in this system, are also excited because they're going to be able to leverage technology for VFX, costs that are unaffordable for usually small budget films. So there's a lot of opportunities, and I think instead of being afraid, we should see and see the opportunities and how it can enhance the jobs that are already of talent in the industry and crew members.
So can you talk about some of these deals? So we were reading on your website that you have, there's a part of the Cannes screenplay list. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So this is how we started as a talent platform. As a startup, we figure out creative ways to create visibility, attract talents on the talent platform. And so the Cannes screenplay list was a way to gain visibility and become a well-known and industry. The reputation of this list has been keeps rising. I keep talking, listening to, hearing from agents that are like, it's one of the top lists in Hollywood. So it's great to hear, and it features women and non-binary writers because they're underrepresented in the industry, and it is a marketing strategy. You're not going to do a list of top screenplays of, this is what was needed, so this is what we did. And we really followed the strategy of the Cannes Film Festival. The Cannes Film Festival is a market, very different from South by Southwest. Over there, it's a market to sell your film. So sales agents pitch to distributors that are buyers. What we're doing with the Cannes Screenplay list is that we're selecting top screenplays of stories by women that really share a different perspective, that have complex characters, really these original stories that haven't been seen yet. And we're pitching this selection to producers one-on-one. So in a way, we're sales agent. We're just promoting. So we don't have a contract or any deals with the writers. We're just here to promote and use Cannes as an opportunity to create momentum for the projects nominated.
And then you also have a proof of concept with Universal Pictures. Can you talk about that?
So what happened is that, during the, we were exploring how an AI technology can support the discovery of more writers, and also help them eventually work more efficiently. So the idea was always to find a way to help their team, and also eventually discover more writers, have more time. And so what's very interesting with the proof of concept is that we delivered a technology that was a script coverage, technology that generated script coverage. And from there, we kind of tested to get their feedback, and we understood what was the specific needs at Universal, for example. And after talking with, testing the technology with Universal and talking and pitching studios in general, we understood that studios have specific needs. They already work with story analysts. They don't need a script coverage tool, for example, compared to producers that don't have a team, can't afford a script analyst that comes with a high salary for them. So we were able to just clarify what was the needs for studios. And so right now we're in negotiation of a second proof of concept with Universal, and building features that they requested that we build according to what is the priority for them.
That's exciting. So what are you, while you're here at South by Southwest, are you meeting with people to share the tool? Kind of what does your week look like here?
So we're making, there is a big announcement that will come out on Monday that I can talk about. It's related to the startup world, so stay tuned. But we are very, very excited. It's going to really change the game for WScripted. And we are going to announce the technology. We haven't officially announced the AI literary assistant. So our AI literary assistant is called WScripted Plus. We are hoping to do a press release this week. We'll see. And the idea is to onboard producers, development executives, really as a priority before opening it to more professionals. The idea is really to onboard the ones that need the technology the most, and iterate from there. As technology startups, we iterate, we keep building, we keep improving, and so we want to make sure that the technology that we have right now that has been validated by, through POC with Universal, with producers, we've collaborated and getting feedback from a lot of industry professionals. So we're very excited about onboarding and officially announcing the technology, and especially excited about, building on top of those features.
All right, well, so what films are you excited about seeing this week?
Yeah, so super excited because this is my first tech festival, but I'm still a film industry professional, and so I'm excited about the premiere of The Queen of My Dreams, and very excited for the US premiere. It's a Canadian film. I know the producer, I know the filmmaker, and I'm super excited to support them. And also this film has received a lot of positive reviews and is important. So very excited to just be at the premiere tonight.
Well, I hope you have so much fun. Good luck. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Awesome. So thanks, Ellie, for joining the show. Sarah, because I wasn't there, share a little bit of the reaction. So what are some of the key things you think were really interesting?
Sure. I thought it was a really, really cool tool. It's definitely focused more on the studios being able to understand kind of the scripts that are coming in, be able to read through a lot more, be able to, speaking to giving more visibility to women, and people that may have been overlooked in the past. So I think it's a really interesting tool, and it's a really great way to utilize AI in a different way.
Just like spotting different themes to help with the discovery process, so we don't end up with Iron Man 17.
We have a little more diversity in the stories that we see.
It's amazing. I'm excited about that. And so up next, are you leaving me again?
I am. I'm going to be roaming the streets of South by Southwest here in Austin, and going to be talking to some folks and asking about how they're utilizing AI, what they think about AI, what they're scared about, what's exciting to them.
Yeah.
So I'll just be running around talking to people.
You don't want to do a Verve pedal wagon? We saw enough of those yesterday.
We did. Now I've got my sneakers on. I'm gonna go run around and chase people.
AI on the run. I love it.
So it should be really fun to see.
Yeah, so my name is Diego. I work for the German Research Foundation. We are like the National Science Foundation, but for Germany. We have 3 offices here in the United States, and my job is to build bridges in the research world between Germany and the United States.
Fantastic. How do you feel about AI? Like, what scares you about it?
Yeah, so I mean, AI should definitely be for all. That's the first thing. And right now, the way it's developing, I'm not sure we can guarantee that it is for all. Coming from the research world, there's definitely a lot of questions around how can we get the basic science research into the industry quicker.
I'm a cannabis scientist, and I have a educational platform that helps people develop healthy and balanced relationships with the cannabis plant.
Could you imagine AI integrating with the marijuana business?
If federal law allows, then yes, absolutely. So I also work for a data and insights company that serves the legal cannabis space. So better understanding who consumers are, what their motivations are for consumption, and how they're using cannabis. They've already developed like AI bud tenders and other types of software to work in the industry to make better recommendations for people based on what they're looking for.
So, what excites you about AI?
AI is just like a fascinating little playground right now. So what excites me today is just learning more about it, its capabilities. Frankly, I think it provides scale to a lot of things. It helps you get a fast track things like copy or images or things of that nature. I would also say it terrifies me in the same way, where I'm like, I want to know that what I'm looking at something it's actually existing in the world versus manufactured through AI.
What scares you about AI?
Oh my God, so much. And I think that's okay. I don't think you're a dinosaur if you're a little bit scared of it. But what scares me the most is that we'll lose some of the playfulness and idiosyncrasy that comes from fuck-ups. I don't want everything to be perfect.
Alexa versus ChatGPT in a boxing match.
Oh, ChatGPT, 100%.
Knockout blow for Microsoft and ChatGPT.
Why?
Amazon doesn't stand a chance. Long-term innovation, OpenAI, it's scary good.
Alexa versus ChatGPT. Who would win in a boxing match?
Alexa, she's a bitch. Like she's like got some fire behind her. I feel like ChatGPT is a little bit more subservient.
I love that. Last question. Have you ever argued with a chatbot?
On purpose, yes. Just to really see where it would go. I want to see how low I could take it, but not for any actual practical purposes. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Sarah, for running all over the streets to interview people
It was
around
very fun.
how they're using AI. So next week, we're going to be talking to more guests, more bonus content from Southwest. Can't wait to share it with you all.
Yeah, a lot more interviews, really great people.
Yeah. This episode was produced by Steve Berkowitz, who's working behind the camera. And it's also produced.
Brought to you by Verve.
There we go. We'll see you next week.
Bye.